do you believe that Facebook is responding in kind with this pivot to privacy? And is Chris Cox's departure, does that suggest that it is for real?
Oh, I think it's for real. I think we're all looking down the barrel at similar regulations that you have in Europe, and they all want to be first to implement those kind of changes before Congress acts. Through all of these discussions, that's really what we need here in the U.S. Apple is already, lives under those kind of guidelines, and I think Facebook is kind of on its heels trying to get there, and are probably the two best positioned to benefit should we move to those kind of regulations.
So what do you think Apple's trying to do with this ad? I mean, it's funny, it's fun, it's showing people closing curtains and locking doors and having secret conversations. And then at the end, it says that if privacy matters to you, use the iPhone. But, I mean, Facebook's apps on the iPhone, so many of these companies that Apple's pointing at saying we wouldn't behave like them, they're reaching customers through the iPhone. So what are we supposed to take from it? What should investors take from the fact that Apple's putting this message out there?
Well, I think it's very clear that Apple needs to let people know that their ecosphere is safe and that they don't share your data. And if they want to be able to catch up in the home with HomeKit, in relation to the lead that Nest has and Ring has in Internet of Things in the home, they need really to highlight that fact, and they've failed to do so far. So I think this is a catch-up mechanism to really maybe put out there one of their best sales points.
All right, let's bring in Deepayan Ghosh, who's the former Facebook privacy advisor. How much work does Facebook have to do if they want to compete with Apple and its stand on privacy at this point?
Oh, it has a lot of work ahead of it. I think Apple has had a tremendous track record in privacy, in trying to protect the consumer's information from outside invaders. And
well, Deepayan, is the will there? Do you think that Mark Zuckerberg actually has the guts, the intestinal fortitude to pursue privacy like this?
It's going to be very difficult. And I think the short answer, at least right now, is no. Privacy is directly in contradiction to the company's entire business model, which is to really understand the consumer's behavior using their personal information and lease that out to third parties like advertisers so that they can target those individuals with content. And privacy really breaks that business model down. So I think for the time being, the types of things that we're seeing from Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and other Facebook executives are not exactly the way things are going to work out. When Mark Zuckerberg says, I'm shifting the company toward a privacy-preserving approach and ephemeral messaging, I think I think there is more there than meets the eye. So if you think about it, Facebook is going to continue to exist the way it exists. Instagram is going to continue to exist the way it exists. And I think all he's suggesting there is that some of the text messaging applications within Facebook are going to move to encryption. That's all. So I think overall the business model.
You think it's more incremental change than a wholesale strategic shift?
I think so. In terms of what the Facebook that we will see, let's say 6 months or a year from now, I think it's going to be pretty similar to what we have right now. And the reason for that is because these companies, Facebook, Google, and Amazon increasingly, have moved toward where the profit margin is highest, which is targeted advertising. And in a space where there's no regulation, U.S. regulation saying that these companies cannot do this kind of thing, that is to say, collect information and lease it out and enable targeted advertising against it, we're gonna see that business model continue. Nothing is going to change.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the, Facebook's engagement numbers, Tim, would back that up. And although these companies are so large, hard to move the needle, I wonder, this is sort of off topic, but Snapchat's doubled so far this year. Do you think that has something to do with consumers' appetite for privacy or even Facebook's appetite for what Snapchat has built?
I absolutely think you're spot on in that analysis. These companies are competing to an extent. And I think when Facebook looks down at Snapchat, down because Snapchat is much smaller in terms of revenue, it sees a potential threat. Snapchat's digital advertising revenue has, I think, almost doubled over the past year. Amazon's has just about doubled as well. Facebook and Google occupy around 60% of the market, and Amazon and Snapchat together about 8% of the market. But that's growing, and Facebook and Google's share is decreasing. Now, that said, the market itself is still growing dramatically, and Facebook's revenues are still growing dramatically at around 30% every year. So I think that these companies all play on a two-sided market. On one side, companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google, they have a monopoly. In other words, they have intense market power in social media or email or internet-based text messaging or e-commerce. And then they take rents on one side of the market and they translate that into pure dollars on the advertising side of the market. It's that advertising side where increasingly these companies are seeing more competition.
Tim, finally, Chris Cox and Chris Daniels, the first Facebook executive departures that really raised an eyebrow for me. I mean, people come and go at lots of companies, but these are two key people at a time of transition when you normally wouldn't want to see those types of people go. What's the range of reactions that investors should think about here? I mean, some people, I'm sure, will just shrug it off. But could this be bad?
Well, in what can only be described as an epically disappointing week for Facebook from a PR standpoint, this is probably the biggest news. I'd agree with you, John. The investigations into Facebook, the government is classic going after yesterday's problems and not tomorrow's problems. So I really think that these two executives leaving are something to pay attention to. However, as the other guest mentioned, advertising growth is so rapid that it'll be a while before that has really any effect on the growth trajectory of advertising dollars on social media. And also the government's pretty slow to actually try to legislate data privacy regulations. So there's probably some runway left for all these companies to grow until anything fundamentally changes.